clay. That's a little more than you, but if you can handle it, you're fine. So let's just leave it at that. Okay. So you ready to go? Plenty of water on you and on the clay. And since you said in your thing that you'd like to get dirty when you were a little girl, I'm going to count on you getting dirty here. So that's part of it. You have to get dirty. Okay. So sit close, even closer. Yes, good, perfect. Now get that left elbow, into the hip, perfect. And just get this one to help. So lean into it. Is it down hard though? I forgot to mention that. Got to be down well on there. And lean in. Keep this needs to keep together. That's. But lean with your whole palm into it. Grab here. Lean with that palm in. So if you tilt the palm, it goes smaller here. If you go undercut, it goes there. So you got that, and then you come up to the top, and you press down there. But you see, that's why the thumb has to be out of the way, right? For that exact reason. So now press in again to there, and press here. Don't press with anything but that part of the palm, of the thumb. Yeah, good. That's more like it. We didn't need that much clay anyway. But don't send that thumb separate. See, your thumb is separate. The thumb needs to be here. You just use the palm. So you're using this part of the hand. Okay, that's pressing it up, and you've undercut it a little bit. But no, you come spread across here and come down like that. But that always has to be together with your fingers. So let's get that out of the way. Let's just get it out of the way so that it comes up here. And lean into it, right? Yeah, there it's out of the way. Now it's out of the way. And then you press here. That's okay. But you need to come over the top. And keep that together. You're just going to have to get used to that part. That's an important part. Okay, if you're finding that difficult, you may want to take this hand, you may want to do this hand flat and this hand over the top there, but just don't get that thumb separate. It's going to stick in. Keep that thumb part of it and do that. So your clay's real wet, you can center it pretty easy. The problem with it being wet though is that it doesn't stand up when it goes tall. So lean into it and release on this, lean in and release on that with your whole palm. That moves it up, this moves it back down. You want to be perfectly on center, as perfectly centered as you can, you're pretty good. Ease off slow. Come off the clay and we'll speed it up. That one doesn't get a point because you ended up thinner here and thicker there. That's the one thing you don't want to do. You want to always be, if anything, thicker there and thinner there, because this will come off in your hands when you get to a bigger piece. Okay. So you always want to have a better base to it. Okay. But other than that, you're centering well and you're doing all that. You just got a little too much pulling at the bottom. Okay. Yikes. Okay, so top speed and you're going to drop your hole. Left thumb, right middle finger. So now you can use your thumb separately. And get down on your body there. Put your hands together. Wrap them over. Yeah, like that. Relax on the clay. Relax. Relax your tension. Okay, so we've got that lined up. You find that little spot, and you come back and you see that. Yeah. Then you go down in that spot. Go down. With enough water that it's wet, but not so much you can't see what you're doing. And go all the way down. A little more water. Don't make the bottom yet. You see you're going away from the center point. You don't do that until you know how thick you are. You're probably about right though. Little finger, overlap those hands, and now you can curl it. You can curl that thumb and just use the tips and come towards you. And watch it. Go slowly and watch it. Making it flat, getting a little dry, right? You're separating your hands out, so keep those hands strongly together. You just use the tips. That's enough right there. Ease off slow. You're good. So you don't want to do it out so it goes into a pancake. You still want to leave a side there, right? Now you're ready to use this one, like so. Both hands, like that. Then down on your body. And like that, and you do it at a radius, so you do it at the center point and out there, right? But not straight up and down, let it slide a little bit. Press down hard. Press down a little more on that side so you kind of get it out there, and there's your bottom. Okay? Nice flat bottom. Now color in from you. I'm going to slow it down a little bit first. Yeah, color in, and we want the top to overhang a little bit, so yeah, good. Just slowly lean into it. Lean in a little more until you feel it kind of almost pushing back on you a little bit. Good. Somewhere in there, right? Good. Now, sponge in the right hand. Good centering. Good centering. Okay, thumb and middle finger like you're picking up a pin off a table. You know? Thumb in the right hand there. This hand's going to push into more of a cone. And once you start moving, then you'll squeeze a little there. Okay? So we're going to push and move, squeeze a little bit. Ease up. That's okay. But you just ease up as you come into the top and release. Yeah. And if your top's going, now you set your rim. Got to repeat these things over and over so you always remember them. You support it here. Support it just below the rim. Take your finger here and compress it there. So you'll find out, you know, sometimes if that's going up and down too much, sometimes it's off center just a little bit, but it goes up and down, you've got to cut it off. The way you cut it off is you put your hand on it, you put the needle there, and then you slowly move it in. But did you notice that as you hard to do it, it grabs you. So you can't let it grab you, you've got to hold it there real strong against your thumb and slowly move it in. Okay? Got lucky, you didn't even have to stop the thing. Now set your rim again. Yes. You don't need the sponge to set the rim. Support the rim, support it below, just below, and yeah, and compress there. Good. Okay. Now you're ready for your second pull. And feel the thicknesses. See how it's thicker below and thinner above? That's what you want. But all the thickness is. Now don't move the clay. Just feel the thicknesses. Very gentle. Now there's a little extra down at the bottom that we didn't get, right? And that's what you need to do. So take the sponge and push that part in. It's not even connected to the pull yet. Grab one hand on the other. Whenever you can use two hands, you do. And we're going to push that in, move sideways a little bit, so it pushes it in a little further. Good. And I see, take out those lumps by pressing them in. So now you got a lot of thickness down there if you feel it. Go ahead and feel it on the inside. See, that brought the thickness in. Now you take your, slow down a little bit. Press out at the very bottom until you see a bulge. It'll be right about there. And only there. So not the whole finger, just the tip. Here, I'll do it with you. See, like there. See what I'm talking about? See how it bulges? See that bulge there? Now press in there. Lean out a little bit that way. Trap that hand. Press in there. Now this thumb goes below there. Okay, hang on. We're digging in out there. Thumb goes, well, we're caught now. You're right in the middle of something, so collaring that back in, try to start over. You don't want to be touching it too soon. Here's what happened is we press out, then you press back in with the sponge, but also your finger on it, and the thumb, see that needs to be down on your leg. If you can't reach, you've got a lot of clay, you can't reach for the thumb, so this finger has to help that thumb. You keep pressing out, and you follow right below, and come underneath it, and all one flowing thing. Up, you evened them up. Let's change our motif. We'll cut a little bit more off so you're down to where you belong. This was just a little bit too much clay to begin with. And let's see if we can get it back in, and I just want to get you on the pull. Now feel what's happened. See how it's gone a little thin below, thick above, so I'm going to take your sponge. It's just flaring out. Don't let it flare out. Is the other half not flared? Yeah, it's a little flared too. I'll give you a half on that one, but just go a little much straighter. You're pushing out a little too much. I'm going to change this whole thing back into where we were to start with. So we're going to start over with you. Okay, so you made your bottom. You've collared it back in. And I'm going to recenter this so it's all nicely centered there. Okay, so push with your right hand and squeeze as you go like that on the left hand. Yeah, and both hands are down. So this is going to push strongly. Push and move, then you squeeze. Good. Right up to that top edge and then stop and release. Okay, so it should be, feel the thicknesses now. That's perfect. It's exactly what you want. Now, snug up a little bit out there. Just press in a little, yeah, just a little. Now press out until you just see a baby bit of a bulge. Tip of the finger, that's enough. Then you back up that thumb, the thumb's a little below, and move up. And just not all in one shot. So all in one shot, and you keep kind of pushing out, and you come on up right to there. There's your second pull. Right up to the top though. Don't go back in the middle. It's all one shot. It's like, oh, did I do it right? Did I do it right? Going back. Yeah, you did fine. So that's your second one. We've got one more, and we don't want to thin it out. Feel the thicknesses. The thicknesses, your fingers are your eyes. So now press out one more time at the base and get a little bit more of a bulge. The tip, right? And then come just below it there. Keep that bulge above. There we go. Nice and flowing. There's your perfect cylinder. Okay, so a lot of it has to do with keeping it centered and just going through that flow and practicing it over and over again. You can't do much better of a cylinder than that, but just having that little bit extra clay meant that you can't reach to the bottom anymore, and it makes it harder. Okay, so now it's the finish up. Hold that one. Ooh, yeah, you're full of water. You might want to take some out. Here's that. Put it back in your bucket. No, before you do that, we're not going in there, we're coming out here, but you come in there and press out at the corner. This gets all the excess in the very corner, so press out with the tip again. Tip of your finger, but no thumb. You want to see what it's doing. Yeah. Looks like you went down a little bit. See how you went down a little bit? You want to stay up a little bit more, but we'll press back in and now go up against that gently. So you see where it's scraped? Lean out that way so you can see it a little better. Hold this tight and gently come up against. Don't let it do that. Let it slide through a little more than that, but come up against it gently. There. This is what I'm trying to tell you to do. So you take the tip of the finger, just the tip. Hold that there. You use the tip of the finger very gently against it. Takes off all that stuff, and you go to that side. Right? It takes off all that excess clay. Okay, now you use this guy. Like a pencil, lean out that way, trap that arm. Good. But trap it between your body and your leg. Other hand goes here, and you're leaned out so you can watch it, and you come down at about a 45, about where the bottom is on the inside, so somewhere about up in there. And you let it slide in. There, you did it. That's the excess cut off. You do that, you stop the wheel, and you cut it in half and take a look at it. So you didn't cut much off. You could have cut a little bit more. But that's okay. It's just learning that exercise. The cutting off isn't that important. What's important is learning how to cut off, not how much you cut off. Anyway, I'm not going to go through cutting that all off, but you can now cut the whole thing off. Wrap, 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 thumbs down. Yeah, good. Push down hard, come towards you. Now, see, it's a thin bottom. Now, one more time. Now, go from the bottom again and cut it in half. And then stick with that. Saw it back and forth. No, not that way. Saw it that way. There we go. So, we got a super thin bottom, but straight walls, fairly even walls, pretty good. It was on center because you know, one side's the same thickness as the other. That's what you want, just a thicker bottom. Okay, so you'll get, and you know, because nobody even wanted to touch it, because those two S curves are not just straight up and down S curves. The inside is straight up and down, but the outside curves in. So it's curving in a compound curve, you know? So it's not just curving this way, but it's going in too. So every one of those tiles was custom cut from being, we started out at 18 inches and at the top it's 16 1/4, you know, for the same tiles. And they had to line up vertically, because if they didn't, we couldn't drop the lights down straight and have the lights work right, you know, because the lights are coming from inside the thing, and they're a bounce light. They don't show up as, you know, I mean, in other words, some of them you can kind of see, but you're not supposed to see them. You're just supposed to see the thing glowing, you know.
What is how do you start doing the statue of the soldier?
Say that again.
Statue of the soldier.
Yes.
What about the statue of the soldier? Well,
When did you start that?
when did I start that? Well, you know, the first part of the statue of the soldier was done in the fired in place. So that was the thing that, you know, I designed a big one, and And Steve was there,
How would
and
that
then Fred calls up and goes, you know, we should just can this project, right? Because we don't have time to do this, and it's not going to work. And I said, no, we can't can the project. This is the only time we can do it between semesters, and we want to do this. Just try to start this thing off. So we have to do it. And so we made it smaller, but that's how we made that piece. And so that outline was something that I made by taking pictures of all the different, off the internet. I took different, pictures of all the different services. So I tried to do both men and women, and I got the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Marines, and got the profiles of them all, and just pieced them up and tried to get a little piece of each one in there so it was representing everyone. And then, so we made it on the Fired in Place. And the Fired in Place, if you actually look at the soldier there, is not as developed as the one that's on the memorial. The memorial has a different look, and I went over that 100 times, And then then they had a thing like, okay, we're pouring the concrete on Monday. They call me on Thursday. We're pouring the concrete on Monday. We need a plug for your negative of the soldier, and we're pouring on Monday, so we needed the plug for tomorrow, and so I had to make a plug out of foam in 24 hours that would fit into that space and work, and also adjust for the fact that it was going to be covered with cement. It wasn't just going to be the plug, but it was going to be extra cement that was added onto the thing. And anyway, that worked out well, and I was really lucky to have it worked out well. The other thing that I really felt good about was the big soldier, 6'3", and Steve and I pounded that out a couple of times right on that silver thing.
We made 4 of them.
One of the biggest slabs ever made in ceramics that I can think of. I've never seen a bigger single slab, even in industry. I've heard of 6-foot tall ones. This one's 6'3", and finished. But that one on the feet, I made the feet have a weird little kind of, like the feet came down and they came down like that, and then they went like that. So I was kind of proud of that because I planned that bottom part so there would be sort of the beginning of of what it was like if looking through the water to see what the soldier was standing on. Because he's kind of walking on water, but I didn't want him to walk on water. I wanted him to be walking kind of solid, so I did the shoes, and then I added another little piece on the bottom to have it so he sat up that 3 or 4 inches, and I thought that was my best forward-thinking thing. Was actually imagining the soldier, where he's going to be, and what are the problems involving that, So.
Of every aisle, was it all fired right here?
Yeah, they were all fired in a kiln out there. We had one of the kilns for a year.
Wow.
And we fired over and over and over again. And that was the thing that I really liked too about the memorial, was that there's all this variety among the tiles, and that's one of the things that makes it cool to look at, right?
So they're kind of individualistic?
They're individual, they all have different color things, and all that color happened in the kiln. There wasn't anything we painted on there.
How did you fire them?
Oh, we fired them in various different ways. If we fired it hotter, it got darker. If we fired it cooler, it was a little lighter. If we stacked them right next to each other, they did one thing. If we spaced them a 1/4 of an inch, they did another thing.
Regular gas kiln?
In a gas kiln, yeah. One right out here.
So.
And sometimes we even would take, we're stacking up with bricks next to them because we did a couple of shelves, right? Shelf high and then another shelf high. And we'd sometimes paint the bricks with a little bit of salt solution. So there was a little bit of stuff going out in the air, but not that often, a few of them. So all of that, as opposed to, it gave a life to the tile so it wasn't monotonous and they were all the same, but at the same time, and it gave, design to everything, and Fred just loved trying to match up, get the transitions from one to the next, that was his favorite thing to go do involved with the thing, and I was off at him for that because that was the only fun part of the project, and he just glommed onto it and said, "I want to do this," but then he left for 6 months, so I had to do it for the last part of it. But
So there are no two tiles that are exactly alike.
well, no, but you can
Yeah.
see some of them that actually the tiles had been facing each other, so when they open them up, they've got a kind of a mirror image on each one. And so we were doing that, and because of that, the edges would be the same, because they were facing each other, so it would be a good transition when you opened it up. That was really, a lot of fun. And the outside was really hard. The inside was really easy to compose all the images, all the abstract images. The outside was really hard because we did something really stupid, which was we alternated the flaps. We had one row would have 2 flaps and the next row would have 1 flap. And what that meant was that we had to fire probably an extra 3 or 4 tons worth of tiles just to get enough interest to transition from the 2s to the 1s to the 2s to the 1s to the 2s to the 1s on doing the outside of the memorial. And if you look at the outside of the memorial, it's not as cohesive in an imagery way. But the thing that I like about the color thing is that there's no art ego in there. It's not like you're painting Guernica and trying to make a big point about war, or trying to make a big point about what you like or what you didn't. So anybody can have their own interpretation of the memorial. So in that way, I think it's the right thing to do, the right way to have approached it, because it's not an artist's work as much as a participatory thing with the veterans and with the rest of the community. It's not about the artist ego, so we had to put our egos aside.
How did you know, how to fire it, that outside firing?
The outside firing, well, Fred and I had been working on that type of firing for years, and Stephen had been involved with a couple of them. It was a brand new firing, started about, 15 years ago in Australia. Fred, they had some kind of a symposium in Australia where people just went out into the countryside and made stuff with the idea that it would just kind of be left there, right? And Fred helped this one gal, Nina Holy, fire hers. And that was sort of the beginning of the thing, because she unwrapped her, looked like a house thing. And then Fred came back and he wanted to do the same thing for this giant pot that someone had made in some college that was 12 foot long and that wouldn't fit into any kiln, right? So he wanted to do that kind of thing, so we did an experimental one down here, a long, narrow one of that, and we brought Nina over for that, and everybody made her construction method, which was terrible. It made a project go from taking 5 people to taking 10 people twice as long. So it was really not a smart construction method, but somehow at that time, she and Fred both believed that the construction method was what allowed the thing to survive. And the construction method was based on having an open structure. So it's like if you can make a thick wall, right? But it doesn't have to be solid, it can be open, it can be a ½ inch thick, but it's that wide and gets built up. It's gonna be more stable than, just building a slab thing. And, like an airplane wing or something, you get more mass without the weight. In this case, without the water and the clay, so they can dry it quickly and do it, So, I mean, in that area, in that idea it was good, but I just, made them out of slab and poked holes in the slab. Did that kind of stuff. It works better. It works better within a certain scale. If you're going 15 foot tall, you probably got to do something to buttress down at the bottom. Hey, Chris.
Hey, I forgot to bring a lock for my locker. Does that mean I'm going to lose everything that's in it today?
You're not going to lose everything that's in it, but somebody could easily go into that locker and, take your stuff.
I have 4 bags of clay in there. So
4 bags of clay. Why don't you bring them in and put them under there in Steve's place? Say
Yeah?
what?
I have a lot.
Thank you.
Oh, look at her.
Save the day.
When it
4
first
years.
started, it did take a full 4
Well,
years.
the construction, the project took probably 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, from the original idea when the president came to me and, you know, wanted to do this thing, and then it probably took 6 months to decide on what we were gonna do, try to figure that out, and actually, it was originally a combination of 2 pieces, both of which were little models by Fred, that he had the outer part of one piece, and that it was just these question marks, right? And the inner part was a whole different thing that was based on our fire deflex. So he made a little model of both of those for the, when we went to the meeting. My model was dark, and in retrospect, it wasn't a good choice. Because my model, when I first started out, was I had the idea of making a really large, kind of giant wall that was very thick, like 8 foot thick, and having the whole wall be the negatives of soldiers on the way of, like, maybe not, you know, graceful, but on the way of like how you find somebody in Pompeii where it's just a negative, right? So I was going to do the negative of these soldiers so that it would have the profile at the front, but 3D it would come back. And you know, in retrospect, that idea was a little bit, you know, it was just a little dark. You know, I didn't think so at the time, but then when I put my head into Fred's idea, you know, it all got better. The whole thing got a lot better. You know, so. I threw away my own ego in doing that. You know, it became, you know, kind of his project, but I did most of the work.
Oh, of course.
You know.
So the construction was what, probably a couple of years?
Yeah, the construction was maybe a year and 9, well, it was probably a couple of years. We were working almost up to the dedication, you know. We were probably a week away from the dedication doing the last little details, because I designed the landscaping, and that was a battle too, because we wanted student participation, so we put it out to the horticulture landscape architect